And we are back on the Make the Adjustment podcast with Whitney Chiu, who is the president of Reliant Talent Solutions. And believe it or not, this is actually the first podcast where one of my active clients has been kind enough to come on. So I think that's a good sign. But Whitney and the Reliant team partner with companies with they're tackling high priority, high risk work where speed and outcomes matter. Reliant supports organizations that need to deliver but don't have all the internal talent to execute. And they step in where the work is complex, critical, and cannot afford missteps. Whitney is a graduate of Stanford University and the Tuck School of Business. She's known for building teams that scale without losing clarity, accountability, or culture. And I can firsthand attest to that. She also brings practical operator's lens to talent decisions that move the business forward. And again, I'm very lucky to have this insight to Whitney as I've worked with her now for almost 2 years. But outside of work, Whitney's an avid reader. She loves hiking, biking, spending time with family, baking, and even considering a second dog. So Whitney, thanks for doing this today. It's so great to see you.
That's so nice. It's always so fun to get the chance to talk to you, Chris, especially and take a time to a little bit to reflect, not just be in the business, but think about the business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I was very fortunate that a mutual friend of ours, Joe Matarese, introduced us probably a year and a half ago, give or take. And you had just joined the Reliant team maybe a few months before that. And so, you folks are based up there in Windham, New Hampshire, even though you are based out of California. But yeah, we were introduced and, you came into a company that interestingly was navigating a lot of change. Isn't that strange? Like we all get into these situations in life where, you pick up a job as president in a company that was experiencing change. So I want to go back a little bit to, let's even start with your background prior to Reliant. I guess just, your growth trajectory in business, because you've had a lot of really cool experiences that I know our listeners can learn from. So just kind of give me the origin story, where you came from and how you grew up before you got to Reliant.
Yeah. So, for me, it really starts with going to business school. I went, as you mentioned, to the tech school business at Dartmouth, right, so up on the East Coast. And I had been working at Stanford University for 5 years before that in the alumni travel, and I'd really been in the nonprofit world. And I made this decision to go to business school because I saw the kind of my peers from Stanford in these really interesting jobs, and I didn't quite know how to get there. It felt like their roles that they were taking were really different and quite frankly, not accessible to me. And I'm a pretty ambitious person, as you know. And so I was like, how do I go from here to there? And I was lucky to, have a few really wise people in my life who suggested business school was something I wanted to take a look at. And so I did, and I met a tech alum who said, I think you should consider it. And as you said, I'm a California girl. I was like, out to go where now? Right. To Hanover, New Hampshire. But I set foot on campus and I just really fell in love with the entire experience. That was really the building of what I think of the first phase of my business education. That was like all the theory. And it was incredible. I had only taken any finance classes before. Had never seen a P&L. I certainly didn't know what things like EBITDA were, let alone capital markets. And so that was, it was like drinking from a fire hose in the best possible way.
Yeah.
I learned a tremendous amount, built my network, but that is like the theory. And so then the question for me became, well, how do I take this and actually do this business thing, right? That I've heard people talking about. And like many people in business, I got a job at a consulting company, right? You either go into consulting or finance. And so I went into consulting. I worked for Bain in my summer internship with them, and then went back and worked for them for full time for 5 years. And that was an incredible experience because, one of the things I think about a lot for people in kind of building their career or truly as an entrepreneur is it's so much is about getting reps in and building your pattern recognition, right? And you just need to see things over and over and over again in order to be able to start to say, I've been here before, right? The context might be different, the industry might be different, but like actually at the heart of it, this problem is the same. And I actually can get faster and faster and better at solving those problems. And so being a consultant was like that, times 1,000. It was everything you read about: long hours, a lot of travel, but it was seeing problems over and over again. The challenge for me with it was still theoretical. I was still on the other side, right? I wasn't doing, I was advising, I was, putting together the presentation. And then it's like, but at the end of the day, are you going to do that? It's like, are you actually going to do the work? I was as close to execution as I could get within Bain. I worked for a practice that did large scale change. So very, we're talking the Dells, the Cisco's of the Lockheeds of the world, like these huge global companies that are trying to implement incredible change. And it's still, at the end of the day, I wasn't doing it. And
Yeah.
so I decided to leave, and I was like, how do I get closer to being an operator? What is the next step? So I went to work for Shutterfly. And when I was there, I was a GM of two of our different business lines, so sub brands within the Shutterfly world. And again, I was like, yes, finally, when I started to do that role, that's when I was like, this is the thing I really love to do as an operator, where
Right.
you take the strategy. The strategy is interesting for about 5 to 10 minutes, right? You got to have a good strategy. But at the end of the day, we all know it's execution where it lives and dies. And so that I was there for also about 5 years. And really, as a GM, you're responsible for, in that world, top line. And it's 360. It's everything that you need to touch in order to drive the business forward.
Right.
And I love that. And I thought about 5 years, it seems to be a theme. I was like, okay, but how do I get even closer? Right. It's like the next step. I'm like, let's go more into this. What do I do to make this harder on myself? And I was like, I
Right.
know, I'll
You
start a
love
company.
Yeah.
That
I love the
seems
torture.
very hard to do.
Right.
That's exactly right. I really love
Yeah.
to torture myself.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
so I went and I started a really small business. It was an e-commerce business in the kind of creative arts space. I started it with a partner. It was by far the hardest thing I've done professionally.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
learned a lot of lessons from that time. A lot of what I learned is that I actually don't like working in with that few number of people. Like I get my satisfaction from solving problems with other people. Like if it is just me, it is not that
Yeah.
fun. So that
Yeah.
was a very important lesson.
Absolutely.
The second lesson I learned is that I don't like 0 to 1. I like 1 to 1,000. I
Yeah.
like, and this was one of the first conversations you and I had was, or an early conversation. It was, I like it when there's a seed. And what we're trying to do is take that seed. If there's already something there, we've got some revenue, we've got some customers, and how do we grow and
Right.
scale it? And I think
Right.
so that's been my professional journey. And my business school
Okay.
colleague called me kind of as I was winding down my company and said, do you want to come? You want a chance to come work with some folks, in New Hampshire.
Back to New Hampshire.
She was the CFO of, that's
Yeah.
exactly right, of our parent company at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's what started my relationship with Joe.
Yeah.
And that's what has got me as a Californian working in New Hampshire.
I think it's so funny how from the day we met, we always saw things the same way. And I knew some of that story. I didn't know all of it. And it makes total sense to me now because I think there's a lot of things I heard there. And I think a lot of things our listeners should hear. Number one, all the different experiences you had. I mean, the educational background is incredible, but the fact that you work for a company like Bain and you went right into the deep end and like learned so much in those 5 years. You talk about 10,000 hours to mastery. Like you learned so much. And then you go out into the world, you're like, I want to operate. I actually want to do the work that I've been learning about, right? It's not just theory. And it's so funny, Whitney, because I pride myself. When I go to market at MTA Consultancy, then I'm not just a theorist. Like I've done the work, just like you've done the work, right? It's like I've sat in the seat, I've made the tough decisions, and that's what you've done. I've witnessed you do it. I actually didn't know the Shutterfly stuff. That was cool. And even some of in the entrepreneurial journey that you went on, like I didn't know you did that. It's like all of those experiences bundled up. I think it just, people as a leader, there's an instant respect for people that have done the work, right? Like you've rolled up your sleeves, you've done the work. And I know you well enough to, you're so talented, but you're also very humble. And it's like, you don't act like you know everything. You as bright as you are, as smart as you are, I've been in the room with you. And you're always asking for other people's input and what else can we do here? And how can we make it better? So, but make the adjustment is all about change. I mean, there's nobody that's seen probably as much. You've probably seen more change than I've seen in your career. But go back to McKinsey. I'm curious.
Seen a lot.
Yeah, I want to go back to Bain because like the Bains, the McKinseys, like companies hire these companies. And talk to me about like the guts of that and the benefits that companies, if you ever partner with a company like that, like what are you really getting when you partner with the Bains and McKinseys of the world? What do people get from that really? Because it's really, because I've seen the benefits, but I want you to, articulate it.
Yeah. I think you get a few things. I think first and foremost, like you get an outside perspective. And there is something, as we all know, who are operators and leaders, like living day to day, it is hard
Yeah.
to pull up and get out of it. And this is actually why I value our relationship for, I mean, not to turn it into a plug for you, it's incredibly valuable. To have someone or a team of people, right, who are can see things and do pattern recognition across a
Yes.
bunch of different industries or a bunch of different businesses and come in and say, hey, have you thought about this? Right, here's another way to do that.
Yeah.
The Bains and the McKinseys of the world are being hired by global 500 companies, right, who are spending, tens, 20, 100, millions of dollars on these engagements. You're also getting a global perspective. You are getting access to just expertise that is
Yes.
incredibly hard to replicate within your
Right.
own company.
Yeah.
Because and honestly, this is we're in the professional services business too, right? This is the value proposition for us with our clients is you know it's impossible to know all the things, right? As a company, you actually don't want to build up all that expertise in your company. It's incredibly expensive to bring on all that FTE for like the
Yeah.
one or two or three times that you need that. So to find that strategic partner who says like, that's fine, we'll build our bench so you don't have to,
Yeah.
right? We can bring in the expertise, and then when you need it, we can help you apply it.
Yeah.
And then the third reason I think is and there's very sophisticated just analysis and market kind of
Yeah.
approach and understanding that a company like a Bain will bring. The third reason is also sometimes like you or your board need the stamp of approval
Mm.
that, right? Like you actually internally, the right answer. You know the thing to do.
Yeah.
You may have done the plans, but like you actually need, for one reason or another, you
Mm.
need the external stamp of approval and credibility to go
Yes.
forward with it. And so that's another reason why people will hire companies like that.
Yeah.
And they're all very legitimate reasons, right? To hire them.
Absolutely.
One is not better than the other. It's
Yeah.
helpful just to know in advance why you're going to do it, or again, why you would work with someone like you or with Reliant, right? Like it's like,
Right.
okay, what am I trying to get out of this engagement?
Really cool. That's awesome. No, it's great insight. So let's shift. So now we are in operator mode. So you meet Joe Matarese through a network, and there's an opportunity and a vacancy for somebody to lead, I guess, a company or a couple of companies, right? Back in the time we were
Yeah,
approached.
that's
What did you underestimate about, now that you've been in this probably 2 years, give or take? What did you underestimate? What did you not see? Because I know Joe well enough that I know he disclosed everything, but like, what was it that wasn't seen that you got into? You're like, oh, what was that moment of like, I didn't
I
see this
think that's
coming
it.
necessarily? Yeah.
I think what I didn't see is, so I've worked with Joe on a few different companies, and we've taken, effectively what was three different companies that were doing different parts in the kind of professional services and talent world, and we've now combined them into one.
Yeah.
But what I didn't see at the time when I first started working with him was that the revenue that the companies were generating, because they were all both generating revenue, was masking some underlying
Hmm.
um lack of clarity and really lack of like what Silicon Valley calls product market fit. Like,
Yeah.
so we were generating revenue and it felt like, gosh, well, if you have revenue and you have like millions of dollars of revenue, you must have figured out the business problem actually and actually
Yeah.
have product market fit. And
Yeah.
and what we discovered is we didn't, right? We were
Yeah.
good at kind of having this revenue, but it wasn't repeatable and it
Mm.
wasn't scalable.
Yep. There you go.
And
That's
so I think that is like, and that has been the last several years of us like really kind of digging in and being like, thinking we've got it figured out and be like, oh, nope, we got to go a little bit deeper. We got to go a little bit deeper to get to really actually
yeah.
what is the true essence of what we do and what can we repeat and scale on a path to profitability.
Yeah. That's such amazing insights. It's funny you say that, because in the professional services industry, we say revenue is a vanity number. And to your point, like the revenue can look like something, to your point, which it is, but you nailed it. If it's not repeatable, scalable, it's not gonna be a consistent ride. And it's funny and you talk about me, Whitney, being a consultant now. I talk to entrepreneurs of one, I talk to companies that do $100 million. Every single time, and I think you'd agree with this, I tell them, look, you should be building your company and growing and scaling it, acting like you're going to exit. You need to run it as if it's someday you're going to step away as the president, as the CEO, as the owner, as the founder. Like, imagine a day in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years where you actually don't have to be there and it runs itself. Like, that's how we should be thinking about it. Even though you may not want to exit, that's okay. But we want to run it that way, right? So you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, because I think that that enables you to build for the future. I think when you don't, what inevitably happens is it's not scalable or repeatable, right? And you realize, like, oh, you're doing a bunch of one-off things, again, that can kind of mask the underlying situation.
Yeah.
I would say not the caveat, but I think the tempering piece of that is, and I have definitely made this mistake. It's you have to be careful that to not spend so much time scaling that you're not paying attention to kind of where your business is today,
Mm,
right? And I think that's a little bit where, what did I not know? I thought we kind of had more of something that was repeatable earlier. And so where we were focused was on how do we scale this? How do we build repeatable systems? And how do we
yeah.
go that? And what actually came to light was like, oh, the thing we thought we had nailed in terms of repeatability wasn't. And so
Yeah.
we've had to, make less emphasis right now on only doing kind of activities that are scale, and making sure we are focused on, let's really nail,
Hmm.
right, repeatable model, and just focus on everything of dialing that in. And I think now we have a nice, we're in a space where we have a nice balance.
That's awesome. Go back to product market fit. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. So what is, just define that for
Yeah.
listeners.
Yeah. I live in California and I used to live in the Bay Area. It's a very Silicon Valley term that comes from this idea that you need to have, right? Like, it's not just that you have a product, right? Or you can make a cool product, right? People are like, oh man, that's so awesome. Like, look at all the bells and whistles in that thing. Product market fit is, but do you have a market who will pay for it?
Got it.
Do you have people who will pay for it? Again, not just
Mm.
that are think it's cool, not just that will download something for free, but will give you their hard-earned dollars, right,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
exchange for the product, and not just one or two of them, right? But
Yeah.
can you find them, and again, are there multiples of them?
Yeah.
And I think that piece, like, we can it's easy to get enamored as an entrepreneur, right? And I lived this too, with like, oh my God, this idea. And I tell people about it and they say it's so cool, right? And they really want
Yeah.
it. And it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, the litmus test is like, rabbit, is anyone going to pay you for it?
Right. Right. It's funny you say that. Some of the best businesses aren't, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, sexy businesses, right? It's like, it's more about,
Correct.
yeah, who's willing to pay? If you want to pay, then there you go. Like, it could be stone masonry is one of my newest clients in a totally different sector than what you work in. The margins are insane. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. So people want to pay for it. And there you go. That's it. I never heard that phrase though. That's cool.
That's,
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think that's it. I think most of the best businesses out there are ones that are not kind of
Yeah.
making headlines. You're not seeing them advertised to you on Instagram, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
these
No, it's
ones,
so
and then the
true.
workhorses for
So,
the very, yeah.
again, this is going to be a fun moment for you. So we'd been working together, I don't
Yeah.
know, three to 6 months. And I came up to New Hampshire for a meeting, one of our quarterly EOS meetings. We'll talk about EOS in a second, but, and you presented to the team, you were shifting, you were making a change in the business. You saw some things out in the market where people were willing to pay, and you did a presentation, and it was a laser show, Whitney. Like, I was sitting there in the room, like, how does she know all this? Like, this is incredible. And then now the Bain thing, now it all makes sense to me. It all comes back because I've known you
Yeah.
as I know you as like the operator, you run the business and all the things. And I'm like, how does she know all this stuff? Like, this is insane. So I think it speaks to just being a well-rounded leader anyways. But what I wanted to talk about is the mindset of shifting a team. So think about, I want people that are listening, like you get a leadership job in a new company like Whitney. You're new to the company, you're leading the company. And within 3 or 6 months, you identify, yeah, we got to change a couple things here, right? Which we all do, like anybody would have. And it doesn't even matter the business. Could be Reliant, could be anywhere, right? You're going to change something. I want you to walk me through your mindset, your process, whatever it is when you come to the conclusion, like, okay, things have to change. And now I'll give you the mic. Walk me through your
Yeah.
mindset and process. Once you make the decision, you're going to start sailing a new direction.
think um I think I have a few kind of things I like to keep in mind. The first is I wanna I'm a data person, right? As you said, Bane, right? It all makes sense. So I
Yeah,
wanna have confidence in the data.
absolutely.
Um, not just for me, but for my team, right?
Yeah.
So that they know that this is grounded on something of substance that we can refer back to. And so we're gonna have a way to measure whatever change we're making. So that's the first one is it needs to be grounded in
Okay.
data.
Yep.
And there's also a healthy amount of pattern recognition and intuition that goes along with that, right? The longer you've been in business, but there still needs to be, for me, data to back it. Second thing this is a quote I think I first heard from Brene Brown, but I come back to it again and again, which is clear is kind.
Okay.
And I think what that means to me is by the time I'm going to announce something to anybody on my team, including even if it just starts with my leadership team, I want to be very clear about
Mm.
the what that we're going to do.
Okay.
And I try to leave a lot of room for feedback and collaboration around
Mm.
the how
Great.
we're going to do this in a way that's going to work. I think one of the fundamental roles of a leader and an executive is it's my job to know where we need to get to and what
Hmm.
that looks like. And I need to be clear. If I'm not clear, it means I have more work to do to get clear. So that clarity, because change is incredibly hard, it is
Hmm.
incredibly disruptive, even to the most senior executive. And so we have to expect that there's going to be a lot of soak time. People don't, I don't know if you know this, but basically like, you know, people don't absorb information as well when they're hearing about change, right? We literally cognitively cannot process information
Yeah, it's
as
all
well,
feeling.
right? It's like,
Yeah, it's all
why
feeling.
God, we're
Yeah.
going to it. Let's say if you've ever gone to a doctor's appointment and they give you some tough news and like someone will be like, well, what do they say? And you're like, I don't know. Like, I can't
Correct.
remember,
You just
right?
go blank. Yeah.
So it's like, that's it. So the more clear you can be about again, and if there's non-negotiables, right? We are
Mm.
going to make this change. And here are the things that are right, like just the guardrails.
Yeah.
And then invite, here is all the places where I need your help and input, right? The how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
If there's timing that can be able so that people can have a participate in the process because we are
Yeah.
control oriented beings. We all know this, right? And so each of us needs to be able to take control. And part of the reason why change is hard is because we lose like it's lack of control. Someone else has decided something for me.
Correct.
That is terrible, right? So
Yeah.
how do we get people to give them control back as soon as possible and
Yeah.
and what that is. And I think, change is big and change is small, right? Like this is all it plays in either way. I think the last thing that
Mhm.
but another big thing that I think about, and this is something you and I talked a lot about and I've had to learn a lot of hard lessons on, is how much change can my organization absorb right now?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
being super honest with myself about it. I like to go fast, you know me. I like part of my job is to set the pace of the organization. I'm
Yeah.
always gonna should be going faster than where the organization is, but
Yeah.
I can't push us too fast. And if I do, what happens
Yeah.
is it doesn't matter. It can be the best change in the world. It's not going to get absorbed. And
Yeah.
I have had to learn to really scale back and say, actually, great change. It's going to happen next quarter. We can't do it right now. So I think those
Yeah.
are all the
Wow. I mean, so many good things to take from that. You talk about the data, and what changed my life was 2013. We had a PhD come into my old company, Ronstad. His name was Dr. Rick Mayberry. And we talked about change. It was change management training and all this stuff. And he said, there was a study of the Boston University study of diffusion theory that 97.5% of people do not like change unless they control the change. What you just said, 97.5%. So to your point, when I talk about this in companies, the president, the CEO, typically gets to eventually come up with a vision and go, here's where we're going. Okay, well, 2.5% you're in, check. 97.5% of people have that visceral reaction, right? And they feel a certain way and they hesitate. And then there's three buckets of people: early adopters, fence sitters, laggards. And so our jobs as leaders is to manage those groups of people through. And I'm sure, you lean into the early adopters and the champions of change. Like, okay, I'm going to grab onto them because they're with me, right? And then you'll get the fence sitters eventually. And then the laggards, just sometimes people can't. And, Whitney, like you've seen hundreds, thousands of companies, and I've seen probably hundreds of companies. When I see a company go from 1 million to 10, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to a billion, whatever, and people start to freak out, I'm like, look at guys, it's just change. Like you're in a different company. Like the company that was 1 million, it's now 10, it's just different. And when it's 100, it's just different. Like it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make the leader the bad person. Nobody's a bad person. It's just change. But people have that reaction and they can't get over it, So I'm always curious too, like
Yeah.
how you
Well,
continue
and
to
I
manage
think,
change through that. Yeah. Yeah.
but I think part of that is like, there's something about that I think is like, we have this idea that we need to be someplace forever, right? We need to be in a
Yeah.
relationship forever. We need to be at a company forever for it to be kind of like a success and a good thing, right? And there, I think
Yeah.
you're saying is right on. It's like there's things where like when a company is growing and changing a lot, like it is okay on both sides of the house to say, hey, this was a great fit for a while and it's not a great fit anymore. And like that
Yes.
is a totally understandable thing. You can say, like, I don't like to be at a company in this stage. This isn't not for me.
Right.
Like, I think there's that. So I think that's another piece where clear is kind of continually to just tell people,
Yeah.
like, obviously, we want all of you to be with us throughout this full change journey. That's our intention. And
Right.
if you decide not to, because it's not for you, no problem. My job is to paint as clear of a picture as I can about what it's going to be like along the way and what's going to be like when we end, so you can make an informed decision along the way.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's the job of a leader.
Right.
It's not that 100% of the people that you have on either your leadership team or in your company on day one are going to be with you at the end. Like that's
Right.
impossible.
I literally had a
And that's
client.
okay. That's not failure.
No, I had a client last week, and I won't say the client, right? But like the leader literally said to me, this person's been with me so long and it's so hard. I'm like, yeah, but like they're not just ready for the next step of where you're going. Like they did great. It's the whole what got you here won't get you there. There's so many ways to put it. And I had to coach that leader, like, look, it's not personal. There's a way to do this with grace. Like, and I said, by the way, this person, if you keep them for the next year, 2 or 3, you're going to be miserable. They're not going to produce. You're going to be aggravated. And if you can get through this conversation and they can go find something else in a year, they're going to thank you. Like they will be happier, believe it or not. It's going to be hard. There's going to be a setback. Don't get me wrong, but like they're going to be better off and you're definitely going to be better off. And I think it's just, it's one of the hardest things of sit in the seat you sit in the leadership seat that we sit in as leaders. Like it's difficult, but you have to make that decision because you actually know it is the right thing for both people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. It is
Um,
incredibly hard and the right thing.
it is exactly. So let's talk about EOS. So we came in because you were considering, a new system, if you will. And you guys were looking for a coach, et cetera. And I do all the things. And so we got together. I'm curious, I want to hear, this is going to be a fun live testimonial. I want
Yeah.
to hear the things that EOS helped solve for you. And maybe even a thing or two that EOS didn't solve that maybe we can still talk about down the road and you can solve it yourself or I can help. But like, what are the things that the entrepreneur operating system did for you in the business when I came in probably a year and a half ago?
Yeah. And I'm such an evangelist for it now, Chris. You've turned me into a real EOS evangelist. I think what it solved was there's the operating rhythm of a company that just needs to be there. And the way that, we all know, right? We have a vision. And how do you actually translate that vision into action that in results that you can see? And it is the disconnect and it is the tale as old as time. And there are a lot of models out there, but I very much like EOS and really Bloom. Like if we were going to shout out a tool, right?
Sure.
Bloom Growth is the tool because I think that's what really made it with your partnership, made it actually something we could adopt is the ethos of there's the things we're going to talk, like the direction we're going to go, like our goals. There's issues that come up during the course of the week, the month, that are going to keep us, that are blocking us from going, making progress on our goals, or good things we need to be building on that we need to be noticing, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we surface them just through our work. Sometimes we surface them by when we're looking at our metrics on a weekly basis and we say, well, this metric isn't trending in the right direction. Why is that? We have a conversation around that. It's
Yeah.
then having conversations where you're really trying to get underneath the hood of the issue,
Yeah.
to a place where we have a clear path forward. It is then assigning those tasks that come out of it to someone, one person on the team that everybody in the team has visibility to, right? And all of this is transparent. And
Yeah.
then following up on that.
Yeah.
And that closed loop system
Yeah.
that the whole company can see, right? And anybody in the meeting that is what we're talking about stuff can see,
Yeah.
that we are not chasing down. Did you do that? I can't remember. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what were we going to say?
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's
Yeah.
a dusty PowerPoint. Like, come look at, what our goals are. I can't remember. Right. Like that, because now what that means is organizationally, the time that in other places I've spent on all of that nonsense of chasing our tails, we can actually spend on solving problems.
Yeah.
And so I think that's that's a huge part of where that clarity comes. I
Yeah.
think, and again, there's lots of models out there, but I think having a model that you really buy into, that you use,
Yeah.
you as the exec, the chief executive, like, of your company, and your
Mm-hmm.
leadership team, they have to buy into it, right?
Right.
And you have to help them buy into it. I think when you do that, like, it actually is gonna it creates much more opportunity and kind of saves you a lot of time and headache down the road.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I always like to hear the insights. It's funny how almost every engagement I start with, the first 3 months, you get the optimism of like, oh, this is going to be good. And then like around month 2 or 3, like, oh, this is hard. People aren't adopting it and they're not, all the things. And so I've made the running joke that the annual meeting always goes great. It's the next quarterly meeting where I come in like, all right, guys, you're either going to fire me or you're going to keep me around for a couple more years. Cause like, we need to make some adjustments here, and so you guys have, I mean, listen, if any customers I work with, you guys have really adopted the framework. And there were calls I get on, you guys would teach me things about the new divider, the new divider option and the call. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I was learning some stuff from you guys because you were so into it, which is great. And also for anybody that's listening, from a call to action, like I give out free stuff all the time. If you want an EOS framework, like a scorecard, just, hit the button for CTA after the podcast. I'm happy to provide it. It's agnostic. It's not about Reliant. It's just about EOS in general and like what it does to help companies like Reliant. But the only other question I had, Whitney, was before EOS, were you ever familiar with other frameworks like OKRs or any of those other frameworks like that for companies, or is this all new to you?
No, we have. I mean, at Shutterfly, we had OKRs and we did the thing, we had goals,
Okay.
but it was
Yeah.
not, and we had dashboards, but
Yeah.
I think part of it is, and this is where I was, shouting out Bloom. I think one, like, it can become, particularly in bigger companies, extremely divorced from each other, right? Where you're like, well, here's my day to day, and I have this you know, goal, 2 or 3 goals that ladder up, and like I don't quite know the bridge. And um, I think and I had read Traction, and
Yeah.
we had, you know, t- both of the businesses had used in some form of VTO, right? So there was some
Mhm.
of the language, the vernacular in the
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
but and where I think Bloom really unlocked it for us when we had kind of understood, and you introduced it to us, which was great, was like,
Mm.
oh, this is how it all goes together.
Yeah.
And, and like you said, we've really adopted it, and it's led to,
Yeah. I think it's anything I witnessed, and I only worked with Reliant since you had been there. And so I saw a lot of psychological safety in the room since the day you got there, but the framework did definitely, and it does this for every company I work with. It like depersonalizes issues, right? We attack the problem, not the person. It's just an issue. And it kind of like, it brings the emotion. We talked about the show about emotion, like people get emotional. It's like, it does bring the emotion down. and you can have a logical conversation about the actual problem and then diagnose the problem and solve the problem and have to-dos and actions, and then you get to the next thing, So yeah, it's not always unique. That the EOS framework and Gino Wickman and stuff, it's just it's incredible. Tens of thousands of companies are using it, and you guys are you guys are executing. The thing is, you're executing. The word execute, like an operator, like you are executing, which is easy. It's fun for me to
What's
work
my
with you
favorite
guys.
word?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
So I guess a couple last questions. I don't want to keep you too long. I could talk to you all day. I could do this for hours with you. But what about your leadership style? We're both big into emotional intelligence and self-awareness and things like. What shifts have you made, like with your style from the day you started? It's probably been a couple years, if any. Have you made any shifts in like the way you lead, the way you manage? Just any observations you've had on yourself as a leader?
Yes. I think I've, you know, I, there's a few. I'm trying to figure out where to start. My hesitation is like, oh my gosh, so many shifts. I
Uh,
think one of them goes back to this comment I made around pace setting, right? I think I kind of came in and was like, okay, great, like here we go. I was used to kind of a certain pace and vibe from where it worked before, and 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 I have really tried hard, and I'm sure my team will tell you I have to try it way harder, right? To not just kind of shove change on top of change on top of change on top of change. Like
right, right.
I have a real allergy to the status quo,
Hmm.
and I have this kind of type A overachieving kind of default that like if you don't have these huge goals and you're not doing setting new ones every quarter, right? And you gotta kind of load up. Really in the last few quarters, like I've realized like actually, our goals for this quarter are to hit our revenue and gross profit numbers. And that's what they're going to be for, that's what they're like that. And it's just, and we're not, and it's like, and nothing else.
Yeah,
Like no big cross company initiatives. There's some things we're going to support it.
yeah,
Right. But
yeah.
like, it's that actually. So I'm trying to I'm actually trying to simplify things more. And I think I need, and I can learn
Hmm.
how to do that better. Think, you said, you've been in rooms with me and I'm humble. I can also speak with a lot of confidence.
Oh,
Comes from
God,
my
yeah.
time as being a consultant.
Hmm.
I'm used to, I'll make a statement and it's very declarative. And what it sounds like to other people. And then also, I realized like, and with my role in the company is like, I've already figured this out. Here's the answer. We're not accepting any questions or feedback at this time. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
And I've really, had to learn. And again, my team will tell you, I think I have a lot more work to do is to understand that like that's not going to invite the feedback. And so I try to be very clear of saying, I'm going to say something declaratively, I'm making a statement that I genuinely want feedback to and react to. Please give me
right,
feedback
right.
on, is this right? Does
Yeah,
this ring true? What am I missing? Um,
yeah,
because what happens is otherwise, right, your team is like, okay, Whitney's already figured it out. We need to go in this direction. And,
yeah,
and here we go. And I'll bring my data and my PowerPoint slides on like this we go and we go off marching. And
yeah,
it turns out that like they were like silently like, oh,
yeah,
don't do that.
yeah, yeah.
And I thought I was trying to solicit that input, but I wasn't, right? So I think it's about slowing down. It's about still being clear and confident and having a vision. It's not about being wishy-washy,
Of
but
course.
it's about when I am soliciting, trying to be much more intentional about how and when we're soliciting input and we really need collaboration
Yeah,
and solving problems together, that
right.
I'm getting out of the way and that I'm creating the right space for that. So those are just two
Yeah.
of the changes that come
Yeah,
to
I
mind.
mean, just anybody who wants to listen back to this one today, everything you're saying is just so good. And it was funny. One of the questions I was going to close with is like, what's the mistake leaders make when they're trying to scale too quickly? You've already answered it twice. You said you try to change too much too fast, right? It's like, um, it's one of the biggest challenges, Whitney, to your point of like hard charging, successful people, whether they're leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, just like you want to continue to climb and you can see the opportunity. It's right there. And it is the hardest thing, I think, sometimes for leaders to be like, do I continue to push? Do I back off a little right now? Like, um, it's not easy, but when you're in a growth company, that's, the pedal is typically down. When you're in a growth company, it's like, we're here to grow. We're not here to be stagnant. We're here to go backwards. We don't want to lose. And so I've been around a lot of the greats. You're one of the greats. And I should say too, chapter 13 of my book, Balancing Confidence, Humility. I said this earlier, like, because it's obvious with your background, but like, I should say it. You have that balance. Like, it's really hard to get the 50-50 with leaders. Because if you're too confident, it's egotistical, it comes off wrong. People kind of go, And if we're too humble, it's like, are people going to really follow you? Hey, does that person really know what they're doing? So I think confidence is, competency, which God, you have that in spades. But then humility is around, like you said, what you also have, which is, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And I do want your input. I don't know everything. And that's okay. And I think that's the biggest conundrum some of the most successful people fall into. They grow a company, they're successful. And this isn't you at all, but I'm talking to people listening. They get up to this level and they think they're supposed to know everything. And I'm like, no, it's actually the opposite. You actually just go hire a bunch of smart people and support them because they know everything, and it's not really about you anymore. It's about actually your team, and you invert the org chart, right? Because I've seen you do that. I mean, you get in the trenches and work as hard as anyone. So yeah.
I know I do. Sometime again, probably to my team's dismay, but I think it is. I mean, it's also you. How else are you going to know what's happening if you're not kind of in it? And I think that's the balance we're talking about. It's like you got to be in the details. You got to know it so you don't lose touch with what's happening, and you have to get out of your team's way. And I think, and you were in the room for this. I was so happy actually to get the feedback from folks on my leadership team when we were planning Q1, and we asked, what do you need for Q1? What's asked? And it was kind of get out of our way. Like, let us do more. Let us do more. You're always trying to help and trying to be service, but it's like, right, we got this. And I was like, yes, like, awesome. I'm not always great at it again, but it's like, but I'm like, but that is, to me, that is right. Because now it's like, okay, there's 3 more problems I can now spend time thinking about. And
exactly.
So,
No, it's funny. I make a joke with new leaders. Whenever somebody gets promoted, like from industry contributor to leader, I'm like, hey, what's your like long-term objective, 3 to 5 years? And they'll give me all kinds of answers. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what my mentor told me a long time ago. He said, Chris, your objective in 3 to 5 years is to walk into work one day and you're bored. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, everybody's working together. The systems work. The processes work. The tech stack is there. The people, the right people in the right seat. He's like, and you literally walk into work at like 8 or 9, and at 10, you're like, I don't even need to be here right now. And that allows you to then work on the next thing, right? The more strategic work, the next division, the next big thing, right? Which is ideally what the CEO president should be doing anyways. But I want to kind of end on that thought, because like, I think people get lost in like, a lot of people I work with, and again, not you, I'm talking to my audience. I see them working so hard and they're in it. I'm like, guys, your job isn't to be in it all the time. Like, I get being in it and I respect it. And, you went to school up here at Dartmouth, Hanover, and the graduate school, and the Northeast mentality, and I'm sure it's Silicon Valley as well, is like, well, I'll outwork anybody. I can outwork anybody. And so sometimes, like, I respect the blue collar work ethic, if you will, but I'm like, but hold on a second, that's not your job anymore. Like, your job is to lead the people that do the work and remove obstacles for them to make their jobs easier so you can go work on the more strategic stuff, right? So it's like the biggest conundrum.
It is. It's really hard. And I think it has a lot to do with like how we define ourselves, right? And
right.
The value.
Well, you don't want to be the ivory tower leader that people perceive like, you're doing nothing, right? Oh, the president's lazy. They're just counting pencils. It's like, you want to be that person.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's it. That's one of my things I think about. Like, I never want my team to see me like that. I want to make sure, like but it can get in your own way. And I think that's always the thing. It's just, it's like finding the balance, and how do you keep the good parts of that without, also just getting in your own way.
Well, I don't know what positions are currently open. I haven't talked in a couple of weeks, but if Reliant's going to grow and scale, but if people want to find Reliant, what are the social handles? Where can people find you if they wanted to reach out to you to learn more about potentially working with you, either as a client or internally?
That's right. We'd love to talk to you. We've made it super simple. You can find us at hirereliant.com and look for us there, or find us on LinkedIn. Would love to connect. This was such a fun conversation. I felt like I really could have gone on for like several more hours. So thank you.
No, this is another one where I look at Joe Rogan's podcast going 3 hours, and sometimes I go like, how does he do 3 hours? Then I talk to you and I'm like, I could do this for 3 hours. So no, I totally agree. And so
Seriously.
really appreciate it. Whitney Chiu, president of Reliant. And again, I can't thank you enough for, I've learned a lot working with you too. I think one of the cool things in my job is I get to work with a lot of cool people and I get to learn a lot of cool things. And you're certainly one of those people. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to do the podcast. The insights are
I
going to
feel
be
the same way.
awesome.
Yeah. I feel very thankful to the Joe made the introduction.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Take care.
Awesome. Yeah. A lot of gold here today, gang. Thank you, Whitney.